Today's lesson is on volume of a cone, and it's building off of the last lesson in which we looked at volume of a cylinder. Very similar lessons, except this time we just have a different formula. So let's take a look at the formula the textbook gives us to find the volume of a cone. We can see here that volume equals 1/3 area of base times height. Here's why I don't like the formula that the textbook gives. It does not define what that area of base is. So for this lesson's sake again, instead of using and referencing the textbook, we're going to reference this formula sheet. So we're going to look at volume of a cone. So it's right here, volume of a cone. You can see that the formula is here, 1/3 times pi times radius squared times height. And that's going to be the formula we use to find our volume of a cone. So how do we put this in action? Well, it's the same. Most of the formula is the same as yesterday's, pi times radius squared times height. We just add in this 1/3. So let's see it in action. To do that, we're going to again work out of our Get More Math so that your problems look similar to my problems. So let's look at this first one. The first thing I want to do is identify my information. First, do I have the radius? Yes, it's showing me the radius and not the diameter. I know this because it has half of that center line dashed. If it was the whole way across, it would be the diameter, and then I would have to divide that by 2 to get the radius. But this one's ready to go and plug into our formula just as it sits. For this activity, I also want to point out that we are rounding to the nearest hundredth for this lesson. So always make sure you're reading the directions so you know what you're rounding to. To round to the nearest hundredth, that's 2 decimal places. So let's write this formula out so that we can plug it into our calculator. So our formula was 1/3 times pi times our radius squared. Our radius is 1.8, because there's our radius. So radius squared times our height, which is 3.17. I'll make a better decimal point there. So that's going to give us our volume. So let me show you how to plug this into a calculator, because the very beginning of it with this 1/3 gets tricky. If you don't do it correctly, you will get a wrong answer. So you must follow this step. So you can go ahead and plug in 1/3. That's 1 divided by 3. Now, once you do that, you'll see that the cursor is blinking down with the denominator of that fraction, which means if I type my multiplication sign in and then the pi, you'll see that it's going along with just the denominator. You do not want that. So if that happens, delete it and start again. So at this point, you see the cursor is blinking at the bottom. You want to click beside it so that your cursor is now beside the whole fraction and not just the denominator. So now at this point, I'm ready to put in the rest of the formula. So I have my 1/3 now times pi times my radius squared, which is 1.8 squared, times my height, which is 3.17. And that gives me an answer of 10.755. So again, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, so it's the second decimal place. We look to the right of it, and that number is 5 or higher, so that is going to round up to a 6. Our answer is going to be 10.76 millimeters. And since we are dealing with volume, we are doing units cubed, so it's to the third, units cubed. Let's look at another one. I'm going to get another one that has a picture on it. There we go. I chose this one because, again, it already shows me the radius. It has half the dashed line, so I'm ready to put it in to my calculator. So that formula was 1/3 times pi times my radius, right there, 10 squared, radius squared, times my height, 22.32. I have my formula written out. So I'm ready to put it in the calculator. So 1 divided by 3, again, I have to click right beside the fraction so that the multiplication sign goes with the whole fraction and not just the denominator. And now I'm ready to put in the rest of my formula. Times pi times 10 squared times 22.32. And my answer, 2,337.344. I'm rounding to this point, so I look here. It's less than 5, so it stays the same. 2,337.34, and that's in yards. And again, dealing with volume, the units are cubed. Excellent. Let's do one more, and we're going to do this word problem here. Now, why did I say let's do this word problem? Because automatically I saw this word diameter. And I do not want the diameter. I want half of that for the radius. So my radius is going to be half of that. I know that R looks like a V. My radius is half of the 10, which makes my radius 5. So now I'm ready to put my formula down. So I have 1/3 times pi times my radius squared, not my diameter, my radius, which is half of the diameter, my radius squared times my height, and a height of 14. So now I'm ready to plug this into the calculator. So again, 1 divided by 3, I've got to click beside the fraction, times pi times 5 squared times my height of 14, 366.519. And that 9 is going to make this 1 round up to 2, 366.52, and that is meters cubed. So we have 5 Get More Math problems to now do. If at any time you get stuck in the Get More Math problems, I would encourage you to go back and re-watch the Edpuzzle video. So maybe you missed part of the lesson, or it just didn't stick with you whenever you were watching it to go solve these. But I would re-watch the Edpuzzle, especially because there's a specific way you have to put these in the calculator. All right, so go ahead and work through those 5 Get More Math problems, and I'll see you next lesson.